All right, in this video, we're going to be looking at some particular structures in the lymphatic system and how they function. And we'll be starting with the individual cells that are found in the lymphatic system, lymphoid cells. We're not going to get into a lot of detail here because some of those cells have crossover with the immune system, and we're going to spend more time on them. And so we're just going to group all of them in this big group called lymphocytes. And these are cells that can become different cells in the immune system, like T cells and B cells, which we'll talk more about when we get there. And then there are also these macrophages. And anytime you see this phage, it has to do with eating. And so these are just really big cells that just roam around and eat crap that's not supposed to be there. And so these are the basic cells that form up lymphatic tissue, which you can see here again. So there's some macrophages there and some lymphocytes. You have the connective tissue fibers that are kind of keeping everything together. And the main functions of this lymphatic tissue is to provide sites for these lymphocytes, provide places for these lymphocytes to proliferate and to be made. And then also, it also kind of provides these surveillance points, I guess is the best way to think about it, for lymphocytes and the macrophages to kind of sit and wait as the lymph passes through these areas, to wait for things that aren't supposed to be there and then go out and get them. So we're going to look at some of the lymph organs first. They basically fall into two categories. There's some parts of the body that we won't spend any time on, like these Peyer's patches and some of the red bone marrow and some other things that are more what we would call diffuse lymphoid tissue. They're kind of this loose arrangement. It's pretty much found in every organ of the body, these sorts of things that have this lymphatic purpose to them. But then there are some very particular points like lymph nodes, spleen, tonsils, appendix. Even this Peyer patch probably works to this thymus and some of the other places that are very particular in their function. And there's more of a grouped, kind of a solid structure as opposed to just diffuse structure. And these organs are basically grouped into two categories. You have your primary lymphoid organs, and these are areas where T cells and B cells are maturing for the nervous system. You see this in the red bone marrow. This organ here called the thymus, which we'll talk about a little bit in a minute, is also a place for that. And then you have the secondary lymphatic organs, or the lymphoid organs, and this is like all the other ones that you see up here, the lymph nodes, the spleen, the appendix, and others. So let's talk about lymph nodes in particular. Lymph nodes are the principal secondary lymphoid organ in the body. They are doing most of the work of the lymphatic system. There are hundreds of these nodes found throughout the body. Most of them are embedded deep in connective tissue, but there are some of them that are closer to the surface. You know, if you go to the doctor and they kind of feel on your neck or whatever, or you have a swollen lymph node in different parts of your body, these are closer to the surface. The two main functions of the lymph node is they carry out a cleansing kind of function. They act as filters. You have these macrophages in there. They just destroy microorganisms. They prevent unwanted things from coming into the blood. And then the second one is immune system activation, in that those macrophages, and we'll talk more about this in the immune system, basically offer up, this is what I just dealt with, and the lymphocytes see it, and they kind of form a special attack against that. Now, these lymph nodes can become swollen. I don't have a picture of that. I have a picture of a spleen, but I don't have a picture of a swollen lymph node. And they're called buboes, which is a really strange word, B-U-B-O-E-S, buboes. And again, these are inflamed, swollen lymph nodes, and they can be painful. And the problem, what's going on is a lymph node is overwhelmed with bad things. Say if you have an infection in the body or a virus, then they can swell up. And this is where the bubonic plague came from, because one of the traits of the bubonic plague was these giant swollen lymph nodes. So let's look at the spleen, which this kind of looks like some sort of like sliced ham or something. That's just not important. But anyway, spleen is a blood-rich organ because of its job. It's about the size of your fist. It's located in the left side of your abdominal cavity, just below the stomach. And basically what's going on here is some of the same lymphatic jobs, lymphocytes and that sort of thing, but it also serves to cleanse blood, like all the aged blood cells and platelets. All of those things go here to the spleen to die, and the macrophages work to remove all that old blood cell material. You have the tonsils. Well, some of you do. Some people don't have the tonsils anymore. And basically what the tonsils are doing is they're kind of in the back of the mouth, and they are gathering up materials that shouldn't be there, whether it be from the air or from the food that you eat, and they kind of gather it up. And then there's some macrophages and things down in there that will work to get rid of that. It's these little folds in the tonsils that do that kind of work, and it's really easy for them to get infected. This is why a lot of times they're just removed. Same with this organ. The appendix basically is this little tail. This is the large intestine here, and this little piece right here is called the appendix, and it is in the lower right. Like if you feel with your right hand, pretty much right above your hip, that would be where your appendix is located, and its job is to destroy bacteria, very similar to what we've seen. Not as much of a use in us as it is in other organisms, but it does have a use. It does basically, kind of this wall, or this, here comes the small intestine and the large intestine here. So it's this meeting point between the small and large intestine. And so it keeps these bacteria from eating a hole in this part of the large intestine, basically. But it can become infected. Basically what happens is this little area right here, this entranceway gets blocked, and the rest of it becomes inflamed and has to be removed. And then lastly is the thymus. Thymus is an interesting organ. You can see where it's located. These are the lungs, the heart. This is all those aortas and stuff, trachea, thyroid. And so here's your thymus. And basically it's a place where T cells mature. It is most active and largest in size during childhood. And so this is an organ that slowly kind of goes away and becomes a nothingness as you get older. Basically stops growing, gradually kind of atrophies. But it is a place where these T cells, which we will talk more about, which form kind of the basis of your specific immune response, go and they mature here, and then you use them throughout the rest of your life.